Back again today with another video. Today I want to talk about something that is important to me as a fan, because up until about a little less than 2 years ago, I had never read a Star Wars novel, and I haven't really read, prior to that I didn't really read anything. And what I found important because of that is the stories that are told in these books that date back, over 30 years ago. Arguably, the stories that are told in the EU, which is considered legends now, are significantly better than any of the stories we've been given in the past, 20 years. It all started in the early 90s when Timothy Zahn, which if you're new to Star Wars, you may have not heard of him, but if you're, a Star Wars fan, you've probably definitely heard of him. In the early 90s, he wrote these 3 books, the Thrawn trilogy. It's kind of relevant at this point, more so than it has been in recent years. But he wrote these books in, I believe, 90, 91, 92, or maybe it was 91, 92, and 93. But without the success of these books, there probably wouldn't have been an EU. There wouldn't have been an expanded universe. There wouldn't have been stories that were told, that went beyond Return of the Jedi. These books have sold 15 million copies, and something like that is insane for Star Wars novels. Obviously, these aren't the original print version. These are the Essential Legends collection, which are just reprints of the original novels in a different format. But the first book of this trilogy is, the self-titled Heir to the Empire. The second book is, Dark Force Rising. And the third and final book of this trilogy is The Last Command. Now, these books all read as if they were one giant book cut into 3 parts. Obviously, I'm not here to go into an in-depth breakdown of them. The only reason I mention this is because if you were to ever decide you wanted to start reading Star Wars novels, I would say this is probably your best bet. Takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi. It focuses on our heroes, Luke, Leia, Han, all of them. And it's the first mention of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Especially pertaining to his importance in the upcoming Ahsoka series. The reason reading is so important to me is because I know, no matter what, I can always fall back on these books. Nobody's gonna go and say, oh, this has changed, this is different, so-and-so did this or didn't do this. Because no matter, what shows, what films, whatever kind of media they make, these books are always gonna be the same, And that's something I've grown to appreciate. As per the difference between Legends / EU, Expanded Universe, and canon, up until Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm in 2012, these were all considered a soft canon. And what I mean by that is George Lucas pretty much signed off on them. He said, okay, that's fine. And a lot of the storytelling is pretty consistent with itself, but there are some books that are just out there and, objectively not good. Not pretending. These are solid. These 30-year-old books feel as if they were written, you know, they're very relevant. Anyway, after Disney bought Lucasfilm in 2012, they up and decided that they were going to do away with the EU. And my meaning by that is they said that all the expanded universe books were going to be considered legends. So they were just stories that didn't have any weight to the larger canon. What I mean by that is the films, the television shows, video games. This is what all they considered their canon. And that was when they wrote their first book of their new canon, A New Dawn. This book is the first novel under the new Disney canon, and it's even got a foreword by Dave Filoni. It was written by John Jackson Miller, and he's written several Star Wars books. This takes place before Star Wars Rebels, and it kind of gives you our introduction to Kanan Jarrus and Hera Syndulla. I digress. My point being is, if you're a Star Wars fan and if you enjoy good stories, don't be like me and sleep on reading for as long as I did. I would always say, oh no, I don't have the attention span. I won't like it, you know. I didn't like it when I was younger. But, you know, as of the last 18 months, a little bit more maybe, I've read 24, give or take, books. And yeah, it's something I plan on doing until I read, you know, the majority of the Star Wars novels, and after that, maybe I'll branch off onto some other fantasy / sci-fi genres. But yeah, don't be so concerned about the argument of legends versus canon, because me personally, that doesn't mean anything to me. I've read good legends books. I've read good canon books. An example of those good canon books would be Brotherhood by Mike Chen. Takes place in the early days of the Clone Wars and centers around Anakin and Obi-Wan. It gives you some really good insight on their relationship. I mean, obviously Brotherhood, but for being a newer book, it holds up really well. And another canon book that I really enjoyed would be Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. This is centered around Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, obviously before the events of The Phantom Menace. I think it's, I'd have to look, a few years, maybe 8 years before The Phantom Menace. So Obi-Wan was like 26 in The Phantom Menace, so he'd have been like 18 or so in this. I like it because it gives you a lot of insight on their dynamic as Master and Apprentice. And Qui-Gon Jinn is one of my favorite Jedi, just because he was, you know, the catalyst, in my opinion, to everything. You know, duel of the fates of the galaxy. If Qui-Gon lived, Anakin probably wouldn't have, you know, turned into Darth Vader, and we know what happened otherwise. But yeah, this book focuses on them and their relationship's really good, and Brotherhood focuses on Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship. So those are two books I recommend if you like the prequels when it comes to canon. But obviously, when it comes to legends, I would recommend these books, hands down. These are probably top 10 favorite books I've ever read. I'm currently reading the second Ascendancy book, so Timothy Zahn's third Thrawn trilogy in publication order. and even to this day, I mean, even these books are 30 years old. They hold up better than 85% of anything else I've ever read. The only other honorable mention I would have to say would be the Darth Bane trilogy. If you like dark and gritty and gruesome storytelling, and you've always been pro Sith and dark side, those books are for you. I think comparatively, it's hard to compare apples to oranges. So these 3 books versus those 3 books, it's really not the same. But I would say they're tied neck and neck for my favorite Star Wars trilogy / novels. They're solid. I mean, those were the first 3 books I read, so I'm kind of biased, but even a friend of mine who didn't read them until later into his book reading journey still says that nothing compares to them. Yeah. I could sit here and talk for hours about books and Star Wars, but I just want to get on here and give you a heads up or give you some advice or just even my opinion when it comes to Star Wars novels, the EU and canon, etc., and the importance I feel it carries as a fan and as someone who just enjoys good Star Wars content. So, there's ever a rainy day and you decide you want to delve into that, these 3 books aren't a bad place to start. The Darth Bane trilogy, this is pertinent being as the Ahsoka series is coming out, so it can give you some dynamic on who Kanan was before he met Hera and all that. It's really good. Really can't go wrong. Start somewhere. I know that there's, a few hundred Star Wars books, so it kind of would be intimidating to find a jumping on point. But Heir to the Empire, 10 out of 10 recommend to anybody. Solid books. Feel like they were written today. This in my head canon is what really happened. Forget the Disney sequels. I know that's controversial, but this to me is real. Thanks for watching, guys. It's probably a little longer video, and just keep your head up on it and check out more videos. Thank you.